Okay. This video is going to be the second part of my series on buying a hand plane. All right. Before I forget, I want to mention three websites that are probably going to help you out better than I can and what helped me out the most. Okay. The first one is what's called among tool users as the Super Tool site, or known as Patrick's Blood and Gore. And it's almost like a blog on absolutely every Stanley hand plane from the number one up past the 608. Any numbering system they used, all their planes, he talks about it, and it's entertaining at the same time. The next one is there's a guy that's associated with a little bit on Facebook through a couple of the collecting groups. He's got a blog or a website, and it's called Time Tested Tools. Excellent resource. Got a lot of blogs on what to look for in buying tools for the first time, buying antique tools, and talks a lot about the different brands and characteristics about them and stuff like that. So Time Tested Tools is another great website, and I will leave the link to that in the bottom as well. So the Patrick's Blood and Gore, the Super Tool site, Time Tested Tools, and the last one that I use, and I have on all three of those I have bookmarked on my phone, is the Rex Mills version of the type study. Okay, so real quick, types are like body styles on a car for hand planes. So you have a, let's say, a 1999 Toyota Camry, and in 2002 they redesigned the body style and they came out with the '03 Camry, as an example. So that would be one type, and then the '03 and later would be the next type. So as Stanley came out with different innovations, like I showed you in the last video, some of them have Bailey here, some of them have Bailey here. One of them doesn't even have numbers on it at all, and it's still a Stanley. So those are the kind of things that change from type to type. And by looking at that study, and I like the Rex Mills one because it's got pictures and it's quick and easy. I don't have to sit there and be like, what is he talking about? Do I see this one? Do I see that one? An example would be 3 patent dates on the bed here with that logo. Okay, that will tell you exactly what type this plane is, in as well as this. Because before that, some of these planes didn't have that. They had, every type has a different logo almost. Every type, the way Stanley's written on the lever cap is slightly different. Some of them are this way, some of them are vertical, some of them have patent dates. Some have 1, 2, 3 no patent dates down here. It's going to change. The older ones had a bead around the front. The later ones have a ring around the knob. Why? Because it's supposed to prevent that from happening. Obviously that didn't work. Also, later ones had a kidney-shaped hole here. I don't have one of those out on the table yet. I think I gave away the 2 I had to a friend of mine. But those are all different types, okay? So what I want to talk about on this one is, how do you know you're looking at a Stanley versus how do you know you're looking at a plane that just says Stanley right here and it's not a Stanley, okay? So knowing reading those websites, studying, okay, research is your best asset, okay, your best ally. Anything you want to describe, any adjective you want to apply to research is your best thing. I used to be a car salesman, and the only advice I could give you now is go find the car you like and then do the research on it and then come back and buy it. Don't go fall in love with the car and buy it on the spot, because that's how you end up paying a lot more money for the car, because you don't know what you should be doing. The same thing goes for planes. The more research you do ahead of time, the better you're going to be, okay? So why do I have these 3 planes here that are not Stanleys? Because I did not know, all right? I walked into a store, and I saw, on that iron, I saw Stanley. And I was like, oh my God, that's a Stanley. I'm buying it. It was $10. I walked into actually, I think it was the same. I think all 3 of these came from the same store. This says Sargent, okay? Sargent is another good brand. I saw Sargent. I was like, holy crap, I'm going to buy this. Not a Sargent. I saw Fulton. I was like, hey, I know that name. Yes, this is a Fulton, and it's one of those ones you want to avoid, okay? So there's a couple ways you can tell you're dealing with a Stanley tool. Almost all of them have the name Bailey on there, okay? Like I said in the last video, Bailey's the guy that came up with this design, and Stanley embraced him and that design, and as a tribute, they started putting his name on their planes, okay? It doesn't say Stanley on here. It says Bailey, okay? I can take this iron out, try and take this iron out here, because I never have it. It's probably all rusty. And I can put this iron in here. And if you didn't know, and you saw that, you would see Dunlap, and you'd be like, oh, that's a Dunlap plane. I'm not going to look at that, okay? Or you'd think it was some weird combination, okay? So they do say Stanley here, and sometimes it's harder to read. The problem is rust buildup, so you won't be able to see that a lot of the time. So, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know what to look for, okay? So, understand that these are the easiest things to change out on planes. I can switch it, and this iron does not make this plane any less of a Stanley, and this iron does not make this plane any more of a Stanley, okay? It doesn't. And you can buy Hawk, which are amazing blades. You can go to Lee Nielsen, you can go to Veritas, and you can buy all kinds of aftermarket blades to improve the performance of any antique plane like this with all the pitting, and it's still a Stanley plane. It's still not a Stanley plane. So like I said, you got Stanley, you got the name here, you've got that type study which shows you what the plane should look like based off the time. You also have number 4 on the plane. Okay? See how these two are the same size? Nowhere on this plane does it say number 4. Nowhere on this plane does it have any sort of naming convention, like what Sergeant would be, maybe a 408 or a 409, that tells you the size of this plane. It's just made in USA. So that is, both of these actually are generic planes. So Stanley also has a couple unique features. Notice the way this lateral adjustment lever is sort of a T-shape. If you look at it this way, like a two-piece design, that piece is kind of stamped in there. Okay, it's not unique to Stanley, but it is an indicator of Stanley, where other planes mostly are not. Okay, so if you look at the lateral adjustment lever on a real Sergeant, you will see that it does not look like this. If I see this nowadays, this is just a red flag. If I see that, if you take nothing else from this video, you see that, just run away. That is not a quality plane. Okay? Now this one over here, they had the Stanley iron. Take that out. Okay? Same frog. The same kind of weird reddish wood. So a lot of this tells me that it's actually probably the same maker, and I don't know who it is. But we also have that same lateral adjustment lever, which is a red flag for me now. I see that, and I just walk away. So, yeah, Stanley iron, Sergeant iron, not a Sergeant, not a Stanley. Walk away. Okay? Fulton, that's a name brand. Dunlap, that's another name brand. Lakeside, that's another name brand. It goes on and on. Defiance, that's another one. They're doable planes, but you don't need to buy them. These, like I said, this one was free. I got another one for 15 bucks that was in a lot better condition to start with. There's no reason to buy one of those cut rate knockoff planes that were the 5 and dime, the Woolworth brand plane at the time. Okay? The frog, I talked about the parts of a plane in the last one. Cast iron frogs are what you want. Okay? Never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever buy a plane with a stamped steel folded up frog that looks like this, okay? Never buy this. I knew that when I bought this plane, but I didn't even look at that. I looked at the brand name. I recognized it, not knowing that it was a poor brand, and I bought it. Okay, what I did with this is I made it into a scrub plane, which means I made the mouth larger, I rounded the blade, and I used it for taking off like 1/4 of an inch of wood at a time. Maybe 1/8, okay? So it can be used. It's not a total loss, but if you want to experiment by doing something that you don't want to do to damage one of these, then these are where your experimentation takes place, because you're not hurting anything. You're not taking any collector value or anything like that, okay? And then this is a Dunlap. I didn't buy this. It was in a box of planes that somebody gave me. There were Stanley planes. There was wooden planes. And these, my understanding is these are made by Stanley, okay? So to start with, you see the similarities in the frog. You see the similarity in this little washer right here, and then it deviates up here. So of the lesser quality planes, this is probably a better lesser quality plane. But again, there's nowhere on here does it have a 4 or a size, anything on there telling you what size this plane is, okay? So that's another indicator that it is not a Stanley or even a Sargent, because Sargents are going to have their size written on there as well. The Sargent I have has Sargent cast in the bed. It's got Sargent cast on the lever cap. So the brand name, the quality, the flagship ones that were made for master craftsmen, made for professionals, are going to have that brand name on it, okay? So that's how to identify a Stanley, okay? The next thing, I'm getting my planes mixed up here. Talk about another thing. Okay, so I talked about avoiding stamped steel frogs, okay? Something else you want to avoid are any planes with cracks or any welding on them, okay? I don't think you can see it. I might have to post a picture in there. But right here next to the mouth, you can see cracks coming out. And over here's another one. And coming up the side. Now, when I got this, it had a great patina on there. You couldn't really, it had that kind of, it was a little bit cleaner than this. But I didn't see that until I was cleaning it up. And once I discovered that, I actually just set it aside, and I've never touched this plane since, except put some occasional oil in there to stop rust from coming back. The astute observer may notice that this lever cap is also incorrect. That's from what they call a transitional plane, which was a Bailey's top on a wood bottom. So I bought this lever cap to replace it, and then I discovered the cracks, and I just never bothered putting them together and going any further with that. Repairs, okay? Unless you absolutely know what you're doing, in which case you shouldn't be watching this video. Don't even bother trying, okay? Just don't. I had a panic purchase one day. I screwed up because I was looking for a 5.5. I was on eBay and I saw one that was ending within seconds, and I bid and I won, and I got a 5.5 for $13 plus shipping and handling. And then I looked at the pictures and realized this is what I got, okay? There's your 2 patent dates I was talking about. So it's got the number 5.5. It's got Bailey. It's a Stanley, all right? But look at that. It's broken. It's riveted. It's riveted back together here. It's broken completely in half all the way across the plane. This plane is absolutely worthless. You can't really see in the video, but it's like banana shaped as well, all right? Even if I wanted to rebuild this and sand it flat again, it would end up so thin in the middle to compensate for that curvature that the plane would just break again. It would be so fragile. And if you look at the Blood and Gore, the Super Tool website, it'll tell you right there. Just put the plane down and step away from it. Don't come up with a counter offer. Don't try and get it for $5. Just leave it alone. I was seriously upset at myself for buying this. To this day, I was losing sleep over it. And I actually see a couple pieces there that I could use. But I'm still so upset about it. So don't, all right? And when you look, you want to look. Make sure all those parts I named in that last video are there. The knob, the tote, the depth adjuster. I've got one from Australia that doesn't have that depth adjuster. Chip breaker and iron with the screw holding them together, and your lever cap. This lever cap will work. It's not bad. It's just the wrong one. It'll still get the job done, okay? Make sure those are all there, and inspect it thoroughly for cracks. Make sure there's no cracks and no welds, all right? And no stamped steel cast. And then one last thing you want to ask, which I probably should have asked you first, is are you buying these to use or are you buying these to collect? I buy these to use. So there's certain concessions I am willing to make. If you're a collector, there are certain concessions you can't make, okay? See that hole right there? I've got this, and then my other number 7 that I do use has that hole as well. This was common for use because these weren't collectors' planes back then. People weren't. It's a different culture now. The original box didn't mean something to somebody back then like it does now. So people would drill a hole, put a nail on the wall, and they would hang it on the wall. All right. Nowadays, people don't do that, and they put a loop on the wall of rope, and they just hang it this way. Okay. That's the preferred method if you're going to hang them up at all. So you'll see a lot of them with this hole. That hole destroys collector value, but it does not destroy usability. All right. Something else that can affect collectability would be an incorrect piece. A repainted one like this. These two are repainted also because I was going to do something with them. And then a lot of people back then always put their names on there so they wouldn't get their tools mixed up. That can affect the collectability as well. But if you're using these for everyday use and you're not a collector, then that stuff is not going to affect the plane at all. And you can use it all day long and that won't affect anything. So a quick recap, all right? I talked about how you can tell you have a Stanley Bailey. One last thing, you've got brass with rosewood, okay? For the most part, these had rosewood. Later on, they came out with a couple other models that had not brass and not rosewood, like just a hardwood that was lacquered or veneered, varnished, I mean. Rare cases, it's still just a regular Stanley Bailey. Like World War II, they had to make some concessions, and then they went right back to it, okay? But your competitors, their lower level planes, you see here, none of these have a nice looking wood. All of it's got this weird, crappy red finish, okay? That's another, nobody's got nice brass like what you have on these ones, all right? This Ward's Master is made by Stanley, so you still have it. And that's what I mentioned in the last one. Ward's Master is another one that's made by Stanley. It still has all those features. And it's this plane was $9.99, perfectly viable plane. So that's another feature that the Stanleys and the Sargents are going to have, and I think the Miller's Falls and Unions may as well. I know Miller's Falls had a fetish for Cocobolo, which is a wonderful wood. It smells amazing. At least in their hand drills were all Cocobolo, so I don't know about their hand planes. So that's another characteristic you'll see there that you won't see in these lower quality planes. All right. I do believe that is it for what we're talking about here. How do you identify a actual Stanley versus an imposter, and some pitfalls to look out for. Stamped, cracks, completely broken. Just walk away. If you find a Bailey like this and it's complete minus the iron, like I said, that is the easiest thing to replace. This one here I'm probably going to replace once I finish moving anyway. Don't let that scare you off. Let structural damage scare you off, okay? But that's it for this video. Hopefully you learned something, okay? Review those websites also. You got the Super Tool site, you got time-tested tools, and you got the Rex Mills website. Go to their type study with the pictures. Bookmark them, and never go into a store without them. And the last thing probably could mention is where. Like I said, I only go to eBay if I can't buy it locally. I go to every flea market in the area. Every flea market I find, I'll stop. And I find tools in the weirdest places. I found a really nice restored Stanley No. 3. All I did was sharpen it, and it worked perfectly. Didn't need to flatten it or anything. I found it at a plant nursery that was also a flea market for $20. Antique stores in my area all have like at least wooden tools. There's tools. There's tools everywhere. And like I said, I only go to eBay as a last resort. So go exhaust that before you go online. And good luck. And if I've helped you, let me know. If I didn't help you and you maybe have some more questions, let me know and I can try and answer them. So thank you.